Welcome, everyone, to episode 2 of Hit It Where They Mow, Talking Golf in Texas. I have a special guest today online from Edmond, Oklahoma, Mr. Scott Verplank, and I want to welcome you to Hit It Where They Mow, Scott.
Thank you very much. It's nice to see you. Nice to be here on your podcast.
I appreciate that. I learned something new this morning or this afternoon. Golf is easy.
I haven't heard that one yet, but if that is the truth, then I'm all for it.
Well, I've watched these guys do the technical part of getting this program going, and I thought, golf's easy compared to this.
Well, you're right about that. Compared to doing the technology and all that stuff, I'm already lost at golf. I'd really be lost at the technology.
Well, I tell you, I'm behind you on that. I want to start off by thanking my sponsors, Niagara Conservation, which is a big supporter of the Volunteers of America and the LPGA. And I like to say, avoid the water hazards on the course and at home by using Niagara plumbing products. And also Veritex Bank, which is the Golf Bank of Texas. They sponsor a tournament on the Korn Ferry Tour, and also my 2 golf courses, the Tempest over in East Texas and Dornick Hills in Ardmore, Oklahoma. Scott, you might be familiar with Dornick Hills.
Well, I am familiar with it, but I haven't played it. I played it one time well before the redo. So, but I know where it is, and it's Dornick Hills has got a nice legacy.
Fantastic. I also want to thank Bill Pelham and Bobby McEver for helping me get you on this show. I know Bobby worked with you when you were a junior golfer.
He did. He was down at River Oaks in Houston as an assistant working under Dick Harmon. And that's kind of where I got hooked up with Bobby. So he helped me there for a few years. Really good guy.
He really is, and knows everybody in golf. I'm struck by the fact that you're one of 5 golfers to have ever won on the PGA Tour as an amateur. Did my homework. The first one was Freddie Haas in 1945 at the Memphis Open. Then it was Gene Littler in 1954 at the San Diego Open. Doug Sanders, the 58 Canadian Open. Yourself in 1985 at the Western Open. And then Phil Mickelson in 1991 at the Tucson Open. Would you consider that your greatest accomplishment in golf?
It's pretty impressive. But I do. I mean, looking back historically, I would say that it is because of what you mentioned. I really want to know what Doug Sanders was doing in Canada in 1958, but that's another story. But yeah, obviously it's a historical, accomplishment that means a lot. It still means a lot, but it was such a long time ago that it seems like a different life.
I know it. We actually played in 2 state amateurs together. I missed the cut at Crown Colony when you won. I did make the cut in 1984 when you won, and I didn't play in 1985. But in the modern era, I guess you're the only guy to have 3 Texas State amateurs.
Well, I didn't know that, but I did. I got lucky enough to win 3 in a row and turn pro before the 4th one. So it was the Texas State Amateur was a big deal. It was a big tournament. And it was kind of what the tournament to win in the state of Texas.
Right. Before that, you played high school golf at W.T. White in Dallas. Grew up at Brookhaven.
I did. Joe Black actually was the head pro when I was a kid. He was the president of the PGA of America. So he had a little bit of clout, and then Brookhaven was the first CCA club. So it was it was a great place to grow up because of 3 golf courses and a bunch of kids running around. So I always had friends to play with.
You know, a lot of talk is, well, not a lot, but for us golf geeks, Tiger Woods grew up on a par three course. I've heard Jordan Spieth refer to the President's Course out at Brookhaven. Is that where you started?
Absolutely. It was, it was 58, 59, 6,000 yards long, par 72. So it was, as a kid, I guess it was originally, in mind was, it was a lot more like the ladies course, I guess, but it really turned into the kids course. Just because it was a great place to grow up. And, I think when I was 12, I shot under par for the first time for 18 holes. And that kind of got me hooked.
Wow, that is good. And I don't, that's what Spieth says too. He started shooting in the 60s. I think they use that approach now with junior golfers. They want them to play up front.
Hey, listen, I would use that approach because you need to learn how to shoot low scores. It's a lot of it's a mindset. So if you're used to shooting 68 or 67 at an earlier age, then it's no big deal when you get out there at a higher level and you're 5 or 6 under par. That you try to make that your normal.
You've been there. Originally, I wanted you on last week because of your connection to Byron Nelson. And it was the 56th playing of the Byron Nelson tournament. Now it's the following Monday. We know Jason Day, great comeback win for him. But talk a little bit about your relationship to Byron Nelson and the emotional win you had there. I believe it was in 2007.
Yeah, well, when I was, 12, 13 years old, I used to carry the little leaderboard sign, like all the kids do, or I don't know if they still do. Seems like there's more adults carrying those things now. But kids used to carry the leaderboards, and my mom was a walking scorer. So Byron was such a great person that he basically got to know everybody that worked at his golf tournament. So my mom was a volunteer scorekeeper. So he got to know my mom. And out of the blue, he called me when I was 16 or 17. I just started my senior year of high school. And he called me out of the blue and asked if I would like him to watch me hit some golf balls. And I was like, absolutely, I would. You know, that was like, that's the kind of guy he was. He contacted my mom and told her what he was going to do. And so she set it up when he called and I was there. And so I went out and met him and hit some golf balls and we played 18. And then through the years, obviously we kept in touch and he sent me, I bet I have 40, 50, 60 handwritten notes from him. He would show up at just here and there at tournaments or award banquets and stuff, and was always a great friend. And then he just helped me with my game all along. If I ever had a question or wanted any advice, I mean, you couldn't find a better person than that.
Absolutely. What about the emotional win?
Well, that was, it was the first year that Byron was not there. So it was very emotional. I'd lost in a 4-hole playoff, like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years before that. And I'd finished like third and had several top five, had some chances to win the tournament. And, obviously being from Dallas and growing up, volunteering at the Byron Nelson as a kid and running all over. Back then it was Preston Trail, running all over Preston Trail, watching these guys on the tour play golf. It was my hometown event, kind of my fifth major. So it just so happened that the first year he wasn't there, everything came together. It was inspirational to me. I was playing okay, but nothing was going to, really nothing was going to tell me that was going to be the week I was going to win the Byron Nelson. But it all kind of came together, and I played great and kind of hung on. Had some nerves in the last couple holes because it was such a big deal to me, but I ended up winning, and that was. I still think that's the most exciting or fun thing or inspirational thing that's happened to me playing golf. So I know winning the Western Open was a big deal historically, but um, winning the tournament in Dallas at 42 years old, having a bunch of injuries, going through all that, and then first year that Byron wasn't there, it meant even more. And then Peggy was there. She was there the whole time with him when he was alive, but then she was there sitting up there, and she actually gave me his hat for a year.
Wow.
They thought she was going to start the tradition of giving the winner the hat that he wore, and she gave it to me, and I had it for a year in my office in a trophy case. And then we decided that I was going to give it back to her, and she decided she wasn't going to give it away again. I said, well, that's probably the smart thing to do.
Wow. I mean, really, I don't want to overdo this, but your reaction watching the film clip, maybe we'll even be able to show it, I don't know, reminiscent to Crenshaw when he won the Masters and Harvey Pinnock had passed away.
Well, obviously I wasn't thinking about that, but I was overcome with, with shock and awe, to be honest with you. I was, I didn't know what to do. I mean, I was just like, wow, it actually happened, and I actually won the tournament that I wanted to win since I was a little kid. And yeah, I held it together pretty good. I didn't start crying until I was walking to the press room and got on the phone with my wife. But like I said, held it together pretty good, and felt like Byron was on my side. Peggy told me that she knew that Byron picked the winner that he wanted. So wow. I thought that was pretty cool too.
Absolutely. It occurred to me looking at your record, you won again on tour in 86 and again in 88. And then you had a 12-year wind drought. So you can relate to Jason Day and staying with it.
Hey, listen, whatever your injuries are, or your health problems, or even just life happens, and you get on the other side of the fence from where where like a Jason Day has been used to camping out, it's hard to get back. It takes a lot of it takes a lot of guts, and it takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of kind of getting kicked in the gut more times than you'd care to have that happen. But I was really happy for Jason. That I know he's been working hard, and I've actually seen him a couple times this year, and he's always been the same guy, really good guy. Great, obviously has tons of talent. I remember when he came over when he was 18 years old. That's when I first met him. But really happy to see him win. That was a great finish for him. Really
was the same way to me. I'm real happy for him, and he's got that Byron Nelson connection. Being his first win was at Las Colinas.
Yeah, he does. So that I just, like I said, that tournament is, it's always been special to me. It's not sad, but it's kind of disappointing what the tour has done to the golf tournament as far as not keeping it, now they call them elevated, but not keeping it. It was one of the bigger tournaments on the tour when Byron was alive. They always had the biggest purse. They always went way over. The red pants guys went over, above and beyond what any other tournament did. Gave more money to charity than really all the other ones combined for a number of years. And just the way things have, it started about 15 years ago when the PGA Tour let Wachovia buy Dallas's date, and that split Dallas and Fort Worth up and kind of hurt the Metroplex kind of monopoly on 2 weeks of great golf. And when Byron passed away, and they let somebody buy that date because it obviously was a premier date, the second week of May. Um, and it's still a great tournament, but it doesn't have the stature that it had when Byron was alive. And uh, I'm hoping that the forces that run it can get it back to where it should be. It should be Dallas, Texas should have an elevated PGA Tour event with Byron Nelson's name on it.
I love that, Scott. I really do. First, I knew of Wachovia, that connection. The vibe is back. There's really good crowds this week out there. And so I did want to mention to you the one time I met Byron Nelson was at the tournament. He came out to the tee where I was standing, and I congratulated him on the field. They had 49 of the top 50 at that tournament that year. So, right what you're saying.
Well, I think Byron had such an effect on people, and I think he would write handwritten notes to every player that he wanted to come to the tournament. And it was, Tiger Woods couldn't turn him down. Right. Phil Mickelson couldn't turn him down. Right. Ernie Els, whoever, Nick Price, whatever, Payne Stewart, all those guys. Everybody played there. It wasn't Las Colinas wasn't the best course. It was okay, but it was all about. It was because it was Byron Nelson's tournament, and then and it was Phoenix before Phoenix. The right. It was the waste management before the waste management. The biggest crowds, the loudest, best crowds, in a great atmosphere.
While we're on that subject, before we move on to a few other things, the Colonial. Bruce Liskey told me one time, the Byron Nelson's all about the person. Colonial, Charles Schwab Challenge, all about the golf course. Your thoughts about playing Colonial through the years?
Yeah, I think that's true. Colonial obviously is a historic, worldwide, at least nationally, Colonial is a historic golf course. But around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, it's kind of right there at the top of the food chain on old, established, lots of history, old school golf still. And it's still, even to this day, it's still a great golf course. And it's, like I said, I'm obviously very biased being a native Texan and growing up in Dallas, but I don't really like what's happened to Dallas and Fort Worth in the current world of golf. So hopefully the powers that be will get an idea to make that, put that string back together.
I love hearing you say that. They talk a lot about the legacy of golf, but it doesn't get any more legacy than Ben Hogan, Byron Nelson, and so forth. What is it about Edmond, Oklahoma? You guys move up there and never come back.
Well, I went to Oklahoma State for college, and then Oak Tree National is where I live and where I've lived here now for 35 years. It's such a great golf course, and the way the club used to be and now is again it's a great facility for professionals because you basically have the run of the place. A really close friend of mine owns the course now. We've redone the greens, fixed up the driving range, new chipping green, new putting greens. And just a lot of, there's a lot of good players that go to Oklahoma State and now that go to OU and some of the other places. And Oak Tree just kind of has a gravitational pull to it because there's always somebody great to play with. The golf course is so hard that if you're not any good, you don't want to play here. So right. You can always get a great game, mm-hmm. And that, Victor Hovland plays here. Actually yesterday, I'm glad Jason Day won, but Austin Eckroat is a right. kid that grew up here in Edmond playing at Oak Tree. And first time I played with him, he was like 16 years old. And I've known him a long time and we're friends and we talk. And I was actually texting with him this week, pulling for him, obviously, but I'm glad Jason won. But I was happy that Austin birdied the last hole to get a piece of tied for second. So that's a big step for a young player.
Absolutely. And by no means did he spit the bit. He just got beat. Yeah.
No, he played great. I mean,
Yeah.
he great experience for him. When I first played with him, I called the coach at Oklahoma State and said, "Are you recruiting the Eckroat kid?" Yeah, we're recruiting him. And I go, "Well, I've only played with one 17-year-old that I thought was better than this guy." He goes, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah, it was Rory McIlroy."
Oh,
I said, "I played with Rory when he was 17, the last round of the British Open at Carnoustie." And I said, "I think Rory's the only 17-year-old I've ever seen that I think's better than this guy. So you might want to grab this guy." And
speaking of Rory,
I think he already had him hooked up. But anyway, yeah. So I'm a fan of Austin, hoping he keeps going. And obviously he's got a good mentor in Victor. You know, Victor's established himself as one of the best 10 players in the world. So, those guys, I think Austin's headed that direction too.
yeah, he's really impressive. Speaking of Rory McIlroy, I wanted to share this. In the clubhouse there, Royal Portrush, somebody pointed out course record scorecard, 65 by 14-year-old Rory McIlroy, or 15-year-old. And he said, look closer. Well, Rory was a +4. So he actually shot 61 and they added 4 to it. He still won.
Well, obviously he's a unique talent. So, and he still is today. So, that says a lot about him.
Goofy good. What about your days at Oklahoma State? You won a national championship in 1983, won an individual title in 1986. I know Bob Tway and you are longtime friends. Some of the other guys you played with in college.
Yeah, Willie Wood. Actually didn't play with Bob.
Oh, you didn't?
He was gone for a year before I got there, but he and I have been lifelong friends, for the last 35, 40 years. But I played with Willie Wood and Andy Dillard, Tommy Moore. But then I played with Brian Watts from Dallas, E.J. Pfister, who's a top 100 teacher in the world now, Michael Bradley, who played the tour. Jeff Maggart was there.
Right.
These had great players. I mean, we had great players everywhere. So, and Oklahoma State golf is a fraternity that's kind of, to me, it's different than any other place. It's just once you carry the golf bag for Oklahoma State golf, then you're committed to a certain way to act, think, and believe. So that's why that's why we're struggling a little bit in the new age, I guess. But I mean, we've been the dominant golf program, since Houston was just off the charts up until the early 80s. Since then, we've been the dominant program, but really over 75 years, we're consistently at the top. So it's a neat thing to be a part of. Put it that way.
Absolutely. Mike Holder, I think he's the retired athletic director, but coached it many years.
He did. He built quite a program and still going along. Just we're struggling this year, but it's not over yet.
That's right. That's right. You mentioned Andy Dillard. He's from my hometown, Tyler. He has a book out called 6 in a Row. I don't know if you've seen that. He mentions you helping him, saying you've got great eye-to-hand coordination. Just go play.
Oh, that's true. Listen, I lived with Andy in college for a couple of years, and hey, he's a natural athlete. He's good at tennis, good at bowling, good at ping pong, just all the hand-eye coordination things. So, he wasn't much of a technician, but he could play. But yeah, he was a fun guy to be around in college.
Well, I've gotten to know Willie through him too. Another great guy.
Yeah, Willie's a special guy too.
I have to tell you, just recently, actually it's been over a year, I really enjoy your commentating. I had a Thursday of the Masters, kind of overdosed, listened to about 5 or 6 hours. But tell me about this new role you have.
Well, actually, I've always been really good friends with the CBS people,
Mm-hmm.
and Lance Barrow, who it lives over there at Colonial. He
Right.
ran CBS Sports for about 30 years. Um, and I was kind of not playing. I was hurt and not playing much. And he kind of said, "Well, have you thought about talking about it any?" And I went, "Yeah, a little bit, but I mean, it is pretty much the only thing I know." um, so it's not that hard for me to talk about golf. But he said, "Well, why don't you come out and we'll try a few things and blah 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 blah." And then with the Masters deal, the Masters is so far ahead of everybody else with all their broadcasting and digital and their Masters app, and it's just phenomenal. So anyway, they have all this coverage, like you said, Amen Corner and 15, 16. So the guy called me and says, "Well, we want you to do holes 4, 5, and 6. It'll be the first time they've ever been on TV." I said, "Okay." And he said, "Well, you think Jeff Sluman would do it with you?" And I said, "Well, here's his number. Call Jeff Sluman." And so he did want. He wanted to do it too, and we actually have a great partner. Dave Fleming is our third guy, and he's the voice of the San Francisco Giants baseball, and he does like college football for the Pac-12, that kind of stuff. Great guy. So basically, we started out as two. We had Sean McDonough as well, who's Mr. He's Mr. Everything. So we started off as two teams, and then Sean got so big that he hosts the par 3 contest now. So now we have the only 3-man booth at Augusta National, and it's been 5 years now, and we haven't got fired yet. We've had the highest ratings they've ever had. I always say, yeah, it's because of me and maybe
Right.
Jeff, but it's because Tiger Woods hadn't played in 3 years, and the first time you can see him is when he steps on the 4th tee. So that's. But anyway, it's very fun going to Augusta. I played it 15 times. Probably didn't appreciate it like I do now, because all you do is play the golf course and go to the range and get out of there. Now I got all this extra time or extra ability to get around. It's amazing. The whole place is amazing. So that's been a lot of fun. I'm actually leaving tomorrow to go to the PGA at Rochester. I do. That's the only 2 tournaments that I'll do now, because that's all I want to do.
Right.
And they didn't offer me a good enough deal to do more TV, which is fine. But I'll do the feature group, the best feature group every day at the PGA this week for ESPN.
Okay. Will you be in the booth?
Yes.
Following. Okay.
No. I get to be in the booth. We make somebody else walk with them.
Okay.
I get to be the analyst with George Savrikas, who's he's a Golf Channel guy, but got signed up with that like 4 years ago, and lucky enough that they just said, "Hey, you and George are going to be with the best group every day." So I've gotten to, be there calling golf. Like I called every shot when Phil Mickelson won at Kiawah Island. So that's pretty cool.
That was so impressive.
I got to watch some great golf.
Right. I'll get to use this word I like. I think your broadcasts on the Masters are rather esoteric. For the golf geek, a couple of examples. Your lead guy, the San Francisco Giants, what's his name?
Yeah, Dave Fleming.
Yeah. He said that Bryson didn't look very comfortable at Augusta. And you said, well, he was comfortable enough to win the U.S. Open at Winged Foot. So I don't know if he's that uncomfortable or not. And that made an impression on me. I'm a big fan of his. But then you said, hey, he can't flight the ball down with his current setup and how hard he goes at it. And I'm thinking, you never hear that on network T.
Yeah, and that's the truth. The Augusta National requires you to hit certain shots, no matter if you think you can overpower it or, just drive it into the ground. It still requires you to hit certain shots. Most of them are into the greens, and man, it's one of the few places left on the planet. Maybe St. Andrews couple of the courses over there that requires you to hit the ball a certain trajectory with a certain amount of curve to get the ball where you want it to be. And I think Bryson knows that. I haven't talked to him. Actually, my nephew is really good friends with him, so I know they talk a lot. But I said that I talked to my nephew and said, yeah, he just doesn't know how to flight the ball good enough with the short irons. And it may be because, but I don't know how to hit it 380 yards in the air either. So I'd probably trade with him now. But he'll just have to, if I think through my nephew, I think Bryson is changing his clubs now. I think he is making some changes to his shorter clubs and not having them all the same length, because he's kind of understanding that, hitting a wedge lower than a 3-iron is needed sometimes. And that's old school golf, but that's what you need at times. And if you don't have those kind of shots, you have a hard time winning at a place like Augusta National.
Well, Lee Trevino spoke in Tyler it was a Texas State Open event. He said the 3 most important clubs in a bag, in his opinion, in this order, were driver, wedge, putter. Your comment on that?
I don't think there's any doubt. I don't know what the order. I mean, you might put driver and putter tied for first, and then the wedges, but you can't do any of them bad and compete, particularly at the highest level. You can't hit it good enough to be a mediocre to poor putter, and you can't putt good enough to overcome not having not hitting greens. So you need to be in the fairway. It's not as important anymore with the way the game has changed, but being able to drive it long and chipping and putting good are still the key to, that's still the key to winning. Tiger Woods, obviously arguably one of the best 2 players of all time. He was the best chipper and putter on the planet for 20 years. I mean, I don't know if he gets enough credit for how good he chipped the ball. And then in the same generation, Phil Mickelson was the other best chipper. Right. So I've always thought that, the wedge chipping is the glue that keeps your game together and allows you to win tournaments.
I think it became more apparent to me through Jordan Spieth, just how good he is with the wedge.
Fantastic. Yeah. Lots of imagination, can play lots of different shots. Jordan can hit the shots that you need at Augusta National. When he's feeling good, he always plays well there. But when he's on, he's got all the shots that it takes to win there. And he plays the game the way that it was designed to be played.
On a more personal note, I wanted to ask you a few things. One, I was at the 2011 PGA. I thought you had a real shot at winning that tournament. Your thoughts about that and your performance in the majors?
Yeah, that I did have a real shot there. I was playing in the second to last group with Keegan, and Duffner had been ahead, pretty good, and then he just imploded on 15, I believe. And all of a sudden, Keegan and I both birdie number 16, and we're a shot behind. We were 4 or 5 shots behind all day. Now we're a shot behind. So I'm 48 years old. I'm going at the flag. I mean, the flag's over there on that little left portion at number 17 in Atlanta Athletic Club. And it was right in between clubs for me. And I went with trying to hit a 3/4 kind of controlled 7-iron. Obviously needed to hit 8, but I just tugged it just barely, and it hit the rocks, goes in the water. I make double. Keegan hits an 8-iron out in the middle of the green, 40 feet away, makes the putt. And then we both par the last. I finish 4th. Keegan gets in a playoff and wins. Right. But yeah, I'll never. It's not a bad memory. It's just I was standing there going, you know what? I'm 48 years old. I'm probably never going to have another chance to win a PGA or any kind of major. I'm going at the flag. So, looking back, it doesn't mean I would have won, but um, that was a great experience being old enough to be some of those guys' fathers.
Right, right. I just remember pulling for you. I didn't realize you were Julie Boris's age.
Yeah, no, I think, I was, had a chance maybe at the time to be maybe the oldest ever to, anyway, it didn't happen. So
Right,
I hadn't
right.
really thought about it, but, yeah, no, that was a great experience.
You mentioned something I want to go back to real quick. Your feeling at Augusta now versus as a player, just the feeling of being there.
Well, obviously now when I go there, it's very laid back and, I'm not having to, perform, or,
Right,
play and all that. It's just, it's business when you're there playing in the tournament. And if you don't look at it that way, you're probably not gonna succeed, or you
right,
might, but not. But it's not. You need to be very focused at Augusta National because there's so much stuff going on around you in the history, the aura, just the place is. I mean, the place is awe inspiring. So you got to
mm-hmm.
be able to block all that out and just play the golf course, play your game, play the course, and that's the hardest part. So now when I go there, all I got to do is just shoot the bull about it. So
Right,
and marvel at how cool Augusta National is and the Masters tournament is. So
right.
it's very easy trip now.
Any other place give you that kind of feeling, like St. Andrews or Pebble Beach?
Well, St. Andrews, yeah, because it's such a cool. I mean, it's such a cool golf course because you kind of when you go there, this is kind of where it all started. This is how you're
Right.
supposed to play the game. And Pebble Beach is the same. Pebble Beach is such a inspiring, walk around that golf course. It's very cool.
Yeah. I heard Nick Faldo interview Jack Nicklaus. Great podcast. He asked Jack toward the end, you got one round to play. What course would you want to play it on?
Well, what Jack says, Pebble.
Yeah.
You know, you could say a lot of places, but it'd be hard to beat playing 17 and 18 as your last two holes of golf ever at Pebble.
Right.
Just because of the view and just the everything. Other than that, I don't know. You could probably, Augusta National during the tournament,
Mm-hmm.
during the Masters tournament, Augusta National is something different than it is the rest of the time. So, but yeah, it'd be hard to argue with Pebble Beach.
Right. What about a couple of tips for our listeners? What would you, hey, if I could tell amateurs a couple of things really help them out, what would it be?
Well, we just talked about it a minute ago. To me, chipping and learning how to chip, not technique wise, but just the whole process of chipping. To hit good chips, you got to hit it solid. So you don't. The best guys don't ever use the same club for every chip. They use the club that allows them the best chance to hit it solid, depending on the lie and depending on the length of the shot. So using a little bit of skill or just a little bit of thought process into your chipping
Mm-hmm.
is really important. I always thought that on the tour, you're going to have 4, 5, 6 footers, and if you have too many of those, now throw for birdie, you're great, but that
Right.
doesn't always happen. But you're going to have 4, 5, 6 footers for pars, and a lot of times it's to keep the momentum going, save around, just whatever, get your mindset back. But if you have too many of those, it wears on you, and you're probably ultimately going to miss one. So I
Mm-hmm.
always, guys ask me, well, how do I putt better? And I go, chip it, gimme. Well,
Right.
what do you mean? I said, you want to putt better? Chip it, gimme. I said, the
Right.
best thing you can do on the PGA Tour is if you miss the green, chip it up there where you can go in and tap it in, and you can go sit over on the side of the green for a couple minutes and collect your thoughts and get your breath and start thinking about the next shot. But if you're having to sweat, a 4, 5, 6 7, 8 footer for par too often, if you're having to do that more than once or twice around, man, it's gonna get you. So chipping to me, like, use lots of clubs, use a lot of imagination. The way golf courses are maintained now, putting from way off the green is a lot more common now because all the golf courses are mowed down and have runoff. So just learning a bunch of shots around the green is also probably the most fun thing you can do if you're just messing around, is learn all these different shots with different clubs on short shots. That, and then I don't, I will say this, the only other tip that I really know is any good is if you're a kid, hit it as hard as you can hit it. Right. It used to not be that way, but that is the way of golf right now. If you're a kid playing golf, learn how to hit it as far as you can absolutely hit it off the tee. So other than that, there's tons of tips. I don't have enough time to Right. I don't have enough time. Well, and I don't remember most of them anymore anyway.
You said something on the Masters telecast that helped me. You mentioned it's a 2 or 3 foot putt, not a lot of break in it. If he hits it solid, he should make it. I started thinking I need to hit those putts solid.
Yeah, that's a lot of people don't think about that, but hitting your putt solid is so important to being a good putter. If you hit your putts all over the putter face, you could have the perfect read, but it's not going to go in. So, that's a good thing to think about. Get on the putting green and don't concentrate on if the ball goes in or not. Just concentrate if you hit the putt solid. And don't worry about your stroke or whatever. Just the only sensation you need is, did I hit that ball solid with my putter? If you do that, they're going to start going where you're looking, which means they'll start going into the hole.
Outstanding. Well, if I forgotten to ask you something, I should. Anything that you'd like to add to the program today?
No, I think we've covered a lot. But no, I appreciate being on, and I hope you have good viewership and lots of luck with the podcast.
Well, thank you. I do want to. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. This is something they say a lawyer shouldn't do. You don't know what the answer is going to be, but "Hit It Where They Mow" is attributed to the great Harvey Pinnock, the Little Red Book.
Right.
I'm steeped in Texas. I remember at the 1984 State Amateur, he was the speaker. Do you happen to recall that?
Yeah, the 84, was it at Lakeway?
No, it was Slick Rock.
Oh, Slick Rock. Okay, yeah.
Jeff Maggart was the runner-up.
Yes. I do remember. I can't remember the whole speech, but I had met him. Obviously, growing up in Texas, Ben Crenshaw was like my idol.
Sure.
When I was a kid, so I'd met him, but he probably talked. I mean, not probably. His whole speech was what he wrote in that book.
Right.
Very simple, sage advice, and not complicated. Unlike golf teaching today, he was like Byron was. He just common sense. This is what's happening. This is what you need to do to make it do this. And golf's not easy, but those guys had a way to make you think about it that was a little more simplified.
Exactly. I remember 2 things. He said, whoever said never up, never in should have said never 5 feet past, never in. And around the greens, keep it low unless you have to go over a bunker.
True. That's true.
Yeah. He also said his easiest lesson was Don January, and we just lost Don at age 93, Dallas guy. Just some of your thoughts about Don.
Don was in the Byron Nelson mold of one of the nicest guys you'll ever be around. I actually saw him a few weeks ago. I was down in Dallas, and he was struggling, but always still, even at 93, kind of still had that little gleam in his eye. Mm-hmm. Just one of the nicest guys. I played with him a couple times when I was an amateur at pro tournaments, just like a practice round. Him and Miller Barber, they were
Right.
They were so nice and so nice to me. Um, so, I mean, Don did it right. And 93, good on him. I'm sorry he's gone, but he was a good act to follow.
That's really nice. One thing you are free to use next year at the Masters, I asked Don one time, the year Sergio won, what was your best finish at the Masters? He said, I think I tied for third or fourth. I never was real good about putting it up here to make it down there. And I thought that was a good way of describing the greens.
That is, there's no doubt about it. It takes a lot of legwork and a lot of kind of local knowledge. It takes just a lot. Most of the time, on that subject, most of the time it takes quite a while to learn the golf course and know how to play it. That's what amazes me about Jordan Spieth is he figured it out very obviously in Tiger Woods. They figured it out really early and figured out all the greens and how to play them and all that. So that's becoming more the norm, but that has been part of the legacy of the Masters of why it's so hard to win there is you got to figure out how to play the golf course. And that goes into what we were talking about with Bryson. Bryson needs to learn how to play that golf course maybe differently than other ones if he's going to win there. So that's what makes it cool, though.
Absolutely. Before we go, your thoughts about Oak Hill and the PGA being there. Have you played that course?
Well, I have played it two different tournaments, but they've redone they've redone it like 2 or 3 times in the last 10 or 15 years. So they got maybe 2 new holes this year that I haven't seen yet. I'm going up tomorrow morning. But it's a hard golf course. It's a little early to be playing golf in Rochester, New York in May. So I don't know. I'll be inside. So hopefully the weather's okay. Actually, last year at Tulsa, the weather was freezing on Saturday. So it'll be very difficult. I can promise you that. It's a hard finish there. It's a hard golf course. And the last couple holes are extremely difficult par 4s. So I'm sure it'll be exciting. We'll have a great field and another historic place. So something good will happen.
Speaking of Southern Hills, last year, thanks to Don January and his son Tim, I got to go. I'd never seen Southern Hills. I was totally blown away. What a majestic place.
Yeah, it is very cool. The clubhouse sits up on top of the hill. You look right into downtown Tulsa. Tons of history there as well. They had a redo there, took out a lot of trees, which I was not that happy about, but mainly left the golf course as it should be. So, really cool place. I'm sure they'll, first one to have 5 PGA championships. So more than likely they'll be the first one to 6.
Right. Well, I want to thank you so much. Anything about the future that we need to know about for you?
No. I'm just. Yes, I've had so many injuries. I didn't play the last 9 months of last year because I had an ankle injury. So I played 6 tournaments so far this year. Kind of a little bit slow, but making some progress. So I'm kind of hoping by midsummer to end of the summer that I might actually be able to compete a little bit on the Champions Tour. So that's kind of that's where I'm headed. But other than that, all good.
Well, I want to thank you again. I wrote down Scott Verplank, a favorite son of Dallas.
Well, I appreciate it. I have the same feelings for Dallas.
Amen. Well, thank you again, and we'll look forward to having you on again.
All right. Thank you very much.
You bet.